Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Open Source Committee meeting today, August the 2nd. Christian is going to lead for most of the meeting here. And Christian, go ahead and get started.
Yep. If everyone can just, for the sake of continuity, just put your affiliations down in the Slack channel. Obviously, I'm Christian, represent Open Source Office. But the first thing we have on the agenda is the policy piece. We do have 4 empty seats in the committee right now. We are aligning it to the Intersect piece, so I already made sure that the draft that Adam Dean put together matches up with what Intersect's proposing, and that we are electing an interim or filling up back up our interim status with a full committee thing. And then the only thing to iron out is whether they rolled off in April or they're up for vote then, or we extend it to October. I'm kind of in line with October because that keeps the fresh faces around for a little bit longer duration. And I think they'd only roll over an extended attendance by like a month or two. I don't think that's a big issue in the long run. I think it's more of an issue if you decrease their participation in the committee by making it April. But those are my 2 cents on the policy. Would we prefer to go through the contents and take 5 minutes to read it and then come back for a discussion? Yeah. Okay. I'll drop the link right here. And we'll do a 5-minute read, if everybody can do that.
Oh, I have some good news, by the way, that a bunch of different groups are now going, hey, we want GitHub repos with issues Kanbans to track all of the work that we're doing.
I'm on mute. That's good. I've been trying to push for project roadmaps and things to be on GitHub projects, etc. Do you need a better visual of it, Tex?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Here, I'll share it. But here's the... I'll scroll.
Christian, how much has this changed from the original Google Doc that we all read? Is there much changes that have happened between the two, or is it pretty close?
Major changes are going to be on the terms implementation method and then the actual election cycle piece where we're aligning to what the Intersect overall strategy is.
Okay.
And then I think we re-edited the candidate criteria. That way you have to be a paying member of Intersect to participate. And then you have to have some relevance in open source and put that in your candidate profile.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily Cardano specific. But that way it's not just any person off the street. And then we did have some pieces related to if before re-electing or doing a whole nother election cycle, if someone had to step down, like march in, etc., there's some other variables we can consider related to election, and that would be these pieces here, which is we could bring in people runners up from a previous election cycle after the ranked choice voting that potentially can fill in. There could be a self-nomination period for people who are interested. And then referrals, either the person leaving can nominate someone, and then worst case scenario, we could just have the chair appoint someone. But we can agree as a consensus how we want to deal with those as those situations arise. Previously, we just went with whoever was stepping down would nominate, and then we voted in.
Cool. I'm glad to see a lot of those things did get introduced back into the other work that was happening. That makes me happy because I think what we worked on with Adam is really good, and so I'm glad to sit there and see that that's being moved over.
Yeah, he's a lot better with words than I am, so I'm glad he wrote it. The other biggest piece is each election just splits the vote in half, and I think so my seat can be replaced, but there's always going to be an OSA representative, so if it's not me, it'll be someone else that would take the place, just depending on availability, etc., just to represent that. But we do have a 9-body caucus, so we're doing 4 people this time, and then the other 5 seats are up for vote in April, essentially, or October, I think is what we're staggering it for, unless we consider this vote to fill in for the October timeframe. Committee call.
Christian, maybe you could
Yeah.
put in a different view. So there's the button besides the viewed that would show a better rendering. The one on the left.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
I think the term limit on the stagnation part, that's one. And also the PR description, that also mentioned 4 months voting cycle. I think that need to be changed.
Okay. Feel free to comment on it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that the overall idea is in consensus with the committee. And I'll give 1 more minute for reading. Okay. General thoughts? Bringing that back to everybody.
So I mean, one thought is just that the voting mechanism to me is not at all clear. In particular, it suggests using roll call voting, but that's generally used to express approval about an individual thing. It's not clear what the actual approval measure that would. So I mean, if we had 15 candidates and everyone says yay to all of them.
My idea for addressing it, because this is going to be interim, the voting mechanism will be provided by Intersect in October, but we have to come up with our solution for this phase. And I was thinking of doing a Google survey, at least for gathering the nominations, and do basic nomination where people fill in all the data that's relevant. And then we can make that publicly available for everybody to sit and review. And then do another survey for collection consensus and try and do a ranked voting process based on that.
Okay, is it then that's not what's in the document, but
I think that was left out because we needed to decide that piece. But the actual process will be tied to chain.
So, Christian, what I heard from Karen in the last meeting I was in is that there's something called Summon or something along those lines that they were planning on using for their stuff, which is some tool in regards to it. I don't know. That's just, this is nothing other than gossip, honestly, or hearsay. But in the meeting that I was in earlier, they were talking about some tool for doing some of the different pieces. I'm not familiar with it. I know that there's a bunch of open source voting tools out there. Honestly, none of them are great. I can give you a listing of them. I've got it written down somewhere. Yeah, I think one of the things, I don't know how to exactly do the writing of that, because it feels like we do have to do something immediately, and then we have to do something that's the future. So I'm hoping that there will be tooling in place for when all of the other elections are done, so that we can do this correctly.
Yeah, October has multiple committees going up, so we just are doing something ad hoc to get us back to full breadth. So we can determine that, and I'm happy to take it offline based on different proposals, and then we just do a offline vote and consensus. I just wanted the overall policy adopted, and we can change the rhetoric on it if we need to. Cindy?
The communication part, so that's our side of it as well, right?
Yeah. Communication, essentially what I'm envisioning is we're going to use Discord as the primary member awareness thing. And I'll tie up with the Marcom team. So that way, once we have the relevant process there, we'll make the announcement. We'll start the election or nomination cycle on a Monday, run it for 2 weeks, and then time that up with the committee meeting to go over, review, and elect. And maybe even do a special one-time meet and greet the nominees during that 2-week cadence.
Maybe we should also write that down somewhere. Maybe in a separate doc or something.
Yeah, I'm planning on putting it in the implementation method once we decided what we're going to do at the interim and make that a PR to edit it.
Sounds good to me.
But is everyone okay with the overall framework? And then we'll get into specificity starting next week. Okay,
Great.
I'll find out about the Summon platform, and if you have those voting open source tools, Solana, that'd be great. Okay. The other piece on the agenda was so the Oracle's working group. We got a charter drafted. Instead of me speaking, Solana, do you want to do a brief overview since you were in the call?
Which thing?
The Oracle's working group. The takeaway there.
I think the takeaway there was them. It feels like they're still getting started. The main thing that I did was I talked about a lot of the standardization models and the different groups that are out there and how to, what they would like to choose. They also did their charter, which got approved. So that looks good. With their charter, they did try to incorporate some of the basics that I said would normally happen. And so it's a much stricter working group than the others, right? Because the fact that they want to possibly do standards. So they are looking at doing things like Robert's Rules of Order and declaring affiliations at the beginning and doing a bunch of different stuff like that. So that was my main takeaway. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover on it, Christian?
Oh, yeah, that was good. The other thing is you have to attend 2 out of 3 meetings to be a voting member, and only 1 person from each company can vote. And we had less than stellar attendance. So we're driving heavy attendance participation that anyone who isn't at the next one isn't a voting member. Starting, they have to attend 2 meetings after that. So we're going into hardcore adoption. I'll try to bring in some stakeholders to drive attendance.
Yeah, and that, by the way, guys, is normal standardization behavior. Most of the standards, basically, you have to meet a certain level of participation of participating to be able to get to vote. You can't just because one problem that they would have is like a bunch of people would work really, really hard, and then a bunch of people will show up and like knock down all the work that was being done. And it's like, you can't do that. We're here to build consensus. Everybody needs to work together. Please show up. So that's why they adopted that, is because of that discussion.
Yep. Any questions on the Oracle's working group before I move on? Okay. The next one's DevX, which ties in the developer advocate program. So we have onboarded 4 developer advocates for the open source office, and they're going to do a bunch of reach out. First one is Alex Sarragan. I think everyone here knows him. We have Uday Solanki, if I said his last name correctly. He's very much with the CBIA, works in Calcutta, does a lot of India stuff. We have Bernard Sambandi in Africa, and then Saganya Arun. She's out of Canada. But they're going to help us build the contribution ladder that'll come up to the committee for review and input that will give you the user journey, essentially from new contributor to core maintainer, and then different levels in between, tie in the open source learning from the different perspectives in the community, and how we can know what open source libraries are there associated with that too. So trying to get a lot of community input to that and then bring it to the committee to help validate and then approve that framework. Tex?
Yeah, just adding in, we are going to work with them, or we're trying to get them all together for a meet and greet next week. I'm sorry. And the goal is to get them to all be able to join next week's call. If there is a timing constraint, we might look at setting up something different, but we are going to ask them for them to at least pop in for 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes next week, so the committee can meet them in the meeting here. So
And they'll also be building in mechanisms for us to get feedback from people and developer pain points, etc. So a lot of integration there. That's where the DevX working group will be tied to it, because their other objective is to participate in different working groups and help drive their inputs to come back to us for anything that they might need. Any questions on that? Okay. The other, trying to remember what was the next item on the agenda, Tex? I remembered that. Oh, I'm actually got it in front of me. OSO updates. So we're working through the acceptance criteria associated with the project framework. We already got all the details published and kind of made everyone aware of the categorizations we're going to. But we'll actually start introducing the criteria for how we'll start assessing the different categories and bring that to the committee probably next time we meet, if we get a draft together and start getting feedback. And having Solana help pioneer that, because the criteria is the most contentious point of view for how you're categorizing things. We also have done the first iteration of our project support services with Philip DeSaro, Anastasia Labs. We're going to be working on technical documentation, but he needed product demos, the marketing piece, which we're going to help with, and then actual technical writing. And that kind of goes into also business model training to help develop more than just being open source consulting on their libraries. So more will develop out of that, and I'm tying that back into our project framework piece as well. I also, Abs, if you want to say hi, I brought in Abs as a community manager for the open source office. So he'll take over a lot of the committee and open source office media controls.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. See some new faces. Oh, Sandeep, how are you doing? We just met a couple of days ago. Hi, Solana. How are you? Hey. So yeah, I'm really happy to work with the open source team here with Chris and Tex, and we have been having some really good, amazing interviews with the dev ads. So really exciting times coming up. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Abs.
No worries.
Other update is the security working group is up. They had their first meeting. We're going over the different things. We will be publishing their charter for everyone to view here shortly. And then the other processes associated with that and their framework that this committee approved will go live on the knowledge base as well. So we finally got stakeholder consensus on the implementation method. And they will report directly into the TSC. So expect updates in their channel to come up over there. The last bit I had, gosh, there's so many things. Oh, we are officially going to the Open Source Summit in Vienna. So if anyone is able to be there, feel free to stop by. We also are officially making Bitergia a strategic partner for open source. I'm going to bring them in to help consult us and projects on open source metrics and how you actually can show a journey to progression. And basically some of the best standards that have been done. They have a whole wide consensus. I guess they can slip in some of their work was stolen because it was that good, I guess is a good non-political way to say it. So, but yeah, so that's another big piece. And I think that's it for the open source office updates at this moment. We also are going to be pushing the governance policy adoption now that Cardano Node 9.10 is out. So there's less stress on the development teams. And that way we'll make sure that those PMC structures are in place, the channels and best open source practice taking place, and escalation paths exist. Any questions related to that? I know that was a lot of material. Okay. That was it for that. And I think we agreed on the voting structure too, that we're moving to Thursdays now based on the poll. So it's going to stagger under the open source office hours. So I'll have an open FAQ at the community, and we can tie in any other agenda items in the meeting in the open forum section. Cindy?
Thank you. One extra point. Last time we talked about the dependency, basically finding the dependencies in Cardano ecosystem. Do we have any update on that end?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. I meant to talk about that. I am going to establish that working group next week. Tex will be flying in, so me and him are going to have a long week to work through everything related to open source, and I'll get the membership consensus, whoever wants to participate, yourself included, and get that launched and running. But that way, this ties in the developer advocates are going to be more boots on the ground to drive participation and make sure we get these deliverables going.
That's good.
Tex?
Just another point. Just remember, we should have some graphics coming out for OSC in general. That way, I'm hoping to get them out early next week. I was trying to get them for the end of this week, but I'm going to follow up on that. Might take till Monday or Tuesday. But we're trying to get out some graphics so we can get some additional, hopefully some additional community participation, so that we have a base of membership, if you will, to vote from for the committee. So marketing is on the way, is all I'm saying.
Cool. Also, so when we're talking, all of this ties back into the open source strategy for the committee. The only other thing to talk about is the maintainer retainer program, which is diversifying the core Cardano projects. We got general consensus in the TSC to progress with that. So I am working with getting the Cardano addresses or Cardano wallet repos that we have with maintainers, and then working forward on getting contracts for 2 other projects. And then we're re-talking about making core suppliers on the core tech stack separate contracts. So that isn't going in place, but it doesn't change any of the work that's going on. It's just adding in more people to help maintain the repositories. So we are making progress on that. And I think that hit all the pillars in the strategy as well. We'll have security up and running. We'll have the governance model officially adopted. Project incubation is going, so we have a framework to categorize projects. The pilot's done. I'm compiling the lessons learned for remediation steps for that. And yeah, we talked about the 5th one we had. But good progress altogether. And out of next week, the next committee meeting, I should have an updated roadmap for the open source office and what we would like to do for general consensus here, just to make sure we're aligned. But it is thinking the next steps of the strategy once we've completed those as well. And I think that opens it up to open forum. Any questions or concerns, anything needs to be addressed? Okay. Oh, someone?
Yeah, I just heard you're going to the open source summit in Vienna.
Correct.
I'm a Cardano ambassador organizing meetups in Vienna, so I thought maybe if you're going from the 16th to the 18th to Vienna, we could hold a meetup there. What do you think?
Oh, that would be perfect. I've been trying to figure out what to do there because this is the first open source event. But please ping me on Discord, and I'll start a conversation on that because that's something that would be worthwhile for sure. I'm already getting our Bitergia folks there, and I'm trying to get some of the Modus guys there as well. I don't know if you were on the list, Nick, or not.
Sorry?
I don't know if you were on the list for Vienna or not.
Not that I'm aware of, but maybe I'll see.
Okay.
Great. What's your okay, maybe you can put it in the chat.
It's that
Well,
open
Christian,
source.
we could just start a thread in the open source channel.
Well,
Sounds good.
You want me to do it? I'll do it.
yeah, but that's my handle. Excuse the capitalization. I'm a bad typer. Okay. Anything else? Who's going to Rare Evo by chance too?
I'll be there.
Cool. I'll see you for sure, Sam. Think Pat was dragging you along, Nick. It was just a hotel problem.
Yeah, no, in the end, I got out of it. I had no desire to fly to Vegas for 3 days in the middle of August, so I'm not going to be there in the end.
Gotcha. I have the same mindset, but I live 4 hours away, so there's no way I can say no.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, I would have probably been okay with it, but I live 17-hour flight away, so.
Okay. Well, if anyone's there, feel free to stop by the booth. Definitely, governance on Cardano is cool, but I wanted to talk about things beyond that, so by all means. And I think I'll stop the recording then.